Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Anna and today I'm going to be talking about Kenya African Safari with EF Ultimate Break. This was my 10th trip with EF, so definitely have hit a milestone with. I've been traveling with them since 2022, lots of trips in the past 3 years. Before you go anywhere, I am an ambassador with EF and I do have a discount code to share with you guys. If you are a new traveler with EF, this will give you $100 off any trip, even African Safari. Definitely choose wisely. There's so many good trips out there. Make sure you use my code UA on R100 and the link in the description and it will give you your $100 discount. The discount code does apply on sales, so if you are booking during a sale, this will stack on top, so even more savings. Since I have done 10 trips now with EF, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I know all about the company, I know how everything works, I pretty much know the itinerary of every single trip, so having the experience from 10 trips now, if you're also thinking about any other trips that I've been on in the past, feel free to reach out with any questions. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the video. So Kenya African Safari is like no other trip that I've been on with EF. Most trips have been city-based or just the regular travel with excursions mixed in, but this was a purely safari-based trip and I absolutely loved it. You will hear my final thoughts at the end of this video, but to preface it, it was incredible. In this video, I'm going to be covering accommodations, food, excursions, transportation, packing, and extra tips that I have. Definitely stay for the extra tips because for this trip, it's worth it. So all my chapters are up. Feel free to skip around to whatever section you want. But we are going to go ahead and start off with accommodations. For this trip, there were only 4 accommodations that we stayed at. We started off with the Best Western Plus in Nairobi, and I know coming from America, you hear Best Western, you're like, ew. But the Best Westerns abroad are actually much nicer and much more upscale than the Best Westerns that we have here. So it's a Best Western Plus for a reason. It was a basic, nice hotel, modern bathrooms that gave plenty of toiletries, decent food buffet. It had the best Wi-Fi out of all of the places that we stayed, probably because it was in a city and not on a private reserve in a national park. It has a super nice gym if you're crazy and want to work out on vacation. For the bed rating, I'm giving an 8 out of 10. It was a standard hotel queen, just a little bit hard. Cleanliness rating, I give a 10 out of 10. It was better than your typical hotel queen. The bathrooms are super modern and nice, and the room itself was really, really nice. So 10 out of 10. Overall ranking, I'm giving a 10 out of 10 because it's definitely the best Western that I've ever been to. So the second place we stayed was Oltukai Lodge in Amboseli National Park. It was cabin vibes with a huge fan on the ceiling. It was a massive, gorgeous lodge right in the national park with animals grazing right in front of your room. I cannot explain how insane this was to be sitting in your bed and looking through the window and seeing zebra like right across from your bed. Like, I have never experienced animals being that close to my room before, and it was a really cool experience. Like, that's what you're booking this trip for, right? To see the animals. So I thought this was the best place out of all the places we stayed just because of this reason. It had a great food buffet for all meals and a nice big fire pit that was really nice to come home to after your PM safaris. Had a nice bar if you wanted to drink and plenty of spaces to hang out in. Each room came with a patio to sit out on and watch the animals. All through the night you can hear the animals making noises, especially if you have a room right next to the fence. So that was kind of disconcerting, but you know, a fence is there, so nothing's gonna happen, but still like a weird experience. But honestly, the noise wasn't too bad if you had your window shut. It had a really nice big pool if you're there during their summer. We did not swim because it was way too cold for that because it was their winter, but it was a big pool that would be nice to be in if it was hot out. I will say, PSA, lock your doors here because they don't shut all the way and they don't latch unless you lock it. We were both in our room and we just like closed the door but didn't lock it. Mistake. A baboon literally pushed our door open, ran to our coffee table and started taking stuff, and he took packets of sugar and then he left because we shoot him out. They've said before, like, at this place, if you leave your door unlocked, especially if you leave and you leave your door unlocked, all of your stuff is going to be ripped through. Like, they are scavengers and they are going to go through all the stuff in the room if they have the chance. For bed comfort rating, I'm giving another 8 out of 10. It was a regular, nice, comfy, big bed. They do have mosquito nets here, but it's like one giant net that goes around both beds. They put it out every night and take it back in the morning, so you don't have to worry about it. For cleanliness, I'm giving another 10 out of 10. Very clean, very nice place, no complaints. And animals are right across from your room. I'm giving it 100 out of 10 because I honestly don't know how you can beat that. You just really felt like the safari part had started, like it was a really cool lodge you were staying in, and you just felt like you were in the nature part of the trip. So I really appreciated that, and it was a great place to stay. Okay, so the third place we stayed was the Crescent Tented Camp in Lake Naivasha. Definitely just a massive tent slash cabin. Like, I don't really know how to explain this because they had told us beforehand they're tents, and they kind of are, but it's not like a regular tent. Like, it's a massive cabin thing, has wood floors, like plumbing, and a big bathroom in the back. Like, it's not a tent, it just has tent walls. So I guess that's what they meant by the tent, but it has a real door, it has a whole bathroom in there. Like, it's not what you would think of as a tent. The tent slash cabin was right on the lake. You can hear all of the animals, and because there's no walls, you can really hear the animals here. Like, the hippos were loud at this place. I heard them in the middle of the night all the time, and it woke me up. So this is much louder than Oltukai. And since there aren't any walls, it was pretty cold here. So I was freezing like all night. I had to put on extra layers here because there aren't any walls. The food overall was okay. Some things were really great, like the pizza, they kept running out of that like immediately, but others were not so great. So it was really a hit or miss when it came to food. A bunch of people complained that the hot water didn't work at this place. Luckily, we were only there for one night, so it wasn't a huge issue. Luckily, we got hot water, so the hot water here is apparently a hit or miss. For bed comfort rating, the bed here was extremely hard. I would sleep on my side and my hip would fall asleep hard. So I'm giving it like a 5 out of 10. It was still a huge, like, queen bed, and you had your own personal mosquito net, but it was just extremely hard. And the pillows here sucked. They were awful. So I did not sleep well here. For Lake Naivasha, I'm giving a 6 out of 10. I mean, they were giant rooms. They were so big that it felt like a hike to get out of your bed and go all the way to the toilet that was on the other side of the bathroom. And because there were no walls, it was really cold. So in the winter, it was not fun. Overall, did not love this place whatsoever, but you could tell the hospitality was there. Like, they really do try to make your stay a good one. Okay, we were officially at the last hotel. So in Masai Mara, we stayed at the Pride Inn Mara camp. I thought this was a great place. The lobby was incredibly nice, like almost catfish level nice for the rooms. Some rooms were better than others, which wasn't great. This is a room that our friend got, and she had upgraded to a single room. Some couples also got this room. It was just way bigger and way nicer than the rooms that we got. They got places with a door and an outdoor shower, and we got a literal tent again that we had to zip up and down. So wasn't super equal with the accommodations, even though most of us paid the same price. So EF does tend to do that at other places if they don't have enough rooms that are the same, which does not always go over well with travelers, but I do understand if there literally aren't enough rooms that are the same, or if someone paid more to get a single room, I get it. But yeah, the rest of us had tents that we literally zipped up and down to open. The beds were great, and we had queen beds, which I was shocked, and the bathroom was really nice. The lobby just catfished us a little bit, and we didn't know that this place was going to be a tent too. We thought from the lobby that we were going to be staying like in these luxurious kind of things, but it was another tent. But it was honestly a nice tent, much nicer than the Lake Naivasha tent. So what's shocking is the bed rating is a 10 out of 10. These were the nicest and softest beds that we stayed in throughout the whole trip. Nice, soft queen beds and great pillows. Cleanliness rating also a 10 out of 10. Extremely clean. Honestly, the hospitality in Kenya is unmatched. I have never seen so much effort being put into hospitality from everywhere that I've traveled. I know that in America and Europe, it tends to be like the standard. You can tell they really put effort into being welcoming and trying to make your stay the best that they can. So overall, I'm giving this place a 9.5 out of 10. It's just like a really far walk from your room everywhere, and they literally had to walk us back, the employees, because there isn't a fence on one of the sides of the hotel. So they had to walk us back every night to our tents to make sure there weren't any like leopards or predators that are going to be walking around our accommodation. But yeah, decent food. It was a really nice place. There was a pool area that was nice. The only 0.5 besides the walking is the Wi-Fi only worked in the lobby and in the dining area, so you didn't get any connection in your room. But honestly, we had decent data coverage here, so it wasn't a huge problem. Okay, that is it for accommodations, and now we are going to move on to food. Food's gonna be really quick. All of the meals on this trip are included, which is so nice. And on a trip like this, I wouldn't have it any other way because we are staying mostly at the hotel. It's not like you're just walking on the town and you have options. So it's really great that all the meals are included. Pretty much every single meal was a buffet. We only had 2 meals where we had to have box meals. One was a lunch in the bush because we didn't want to have to go all the way back to have lunch at the hotel. So we just had lunch in the middle of our safari drive. The lunch was a little rough, I'm not gonna lie. They did did give us a menu, they did give us options. A lot of us left that lunch a little hungry no matter what you got. And then the other meal was a boxed breakfast. That was just because we had some time constraints because of people having to go to the airport early. We had to get out of the Mara like super early, so their breakfast wasn't open yet. I will say though, they are super accommodating for any dietary restrictions. So if you're vegan, vegetarian, you don't need to worry. There will be options for you, especially because every single meal is a buffet. They have options for any kind of dietary restriction. If you're a picky eater like me, you don't have to be scared of what am I going to eat on this trip. There are plenty of options, especially because it's a buffet. There's pretty much always chicken, always plain rice, and occasionally there were like pizzas and pastas. They always have salad. You will not go hungry on this trip, I promise. Lots of people were too full on this trip actually. And randomly they'll have other international foods, but your basics will always be there. So you don't need to be worried about what am I going to eat? Is it all going to be strange food? There are different Kenyan delicacies available to you if you do want to try and branch out, but by no means is all of it like just Kenyan food. There's plenty of food made for tourists. They know what they're doing. But overall, the food was pretty good, and I'm glad that it was included. Since it's a buffet, you can eat as much or as little as you want every single meal. I think it all worked out really well. So now we're going to move on from food to excursions. This is the juicy part. So first I'm going to go over EF optionals, and then I'm going to go over tour director optionals. So for EF optionals, there were 3 options that you could choose from. The first is $30 boat safari in Lake Naivasha. The second one is a $460 sunrise hot air balloon safari. And the third is a $30 Maasai tribe visit. For the Lake Naivasha boat safari, we got on a small motorized canoe and saw some hippos and other animals on an island that was across the lake, and tons of different birds. We threw a fish in the water and watched an eagle come eat it, which was pretty cool. It was an hour and a half long, so honestly it's worth the $30 for such a long excursion. I will say we did not see nearly as many hippos as I was expecting. I thought the lake was going to be like full of hippos, but PSA, hippos cannot swim. I did not realize that before this trip. They just walk along the bottom, so they only stay in the shallow water. They do not go in the deep water because they will sink. So there weren't too many hippos, maybe like less than 20 I would say, but it was cool to learn about how all of the fishermen position themselves along the shoreline to be able to fish and not get attacked by the hippos, because it's definitely a risk they take every single day, but they do have to provide for their families and bring home food, so it's pretty crazy that that's how they live. It was just a cool experience, and it's pretty cheap, so I would say why not? If you don't book this, there isn't anything else for you to do in Lake Naivasha besides sit in your hotel room and wait for everybody to come back, which can be boring. For Lake Naivasha, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. It wasn't the most amazing excursion, but it did fill up the time and it wasn't that expensive. So next is the sunrise hot air balloon. I will say this was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, like right off the bat, but it does depend on which season you are doing this in. We were lucky enough to go in August during the Great Migration. I did plan this and I did book the trip knowing that the Great Migration was going to be during our dates, so this was all premeditated. So doing this during the Great Migration was an experience I will never forget. Seriously, like Animal Planet in real life. It was so cool. We saw huge herds of wildebeest, and getting to fly right over them was insane. It's amazing how many people told us during this trip, like, oh, you guys are so lucky. Like, this does not usually happen. We got told that almost every single day. Like, that's how many times we were told that. And this was definitely the biggest of them all, in my opinion. Our hot air balloon guide had told us that the Great Migration had not even gotten there until 2 days before we had gotten there. He had spent the whole summer, like, waiting for them and waiting to fly over them. So he was just excited as we are, and he does this every single day. Your flight path really does depend on the conditions, on the wind, on your pilot. There's lots of variables at play when you fly a hot air balloon because you can't really control it. We were not by any means guaranteed to fly over the wildebeest as we did, but we again just got lucky. Our hot air balloon pilot was so excited and we got to fly right over the huge herds. We were among probably 20 other balloons and only 2 got to fly right over. That's how rare it was. Everybody else was too far right or too far left, so they got to see them kind of, but they did not get to fly right over. Yeah, so what are the odds? Like, we get perfect weather, a great pilot, perfect conditions for the wind. We were just destined to have that moment, I guess, and I'm so thankful that we did because it was just the coolest experience. I think 19 of us signed up for this excursion, but a balloon can only hold 16 people with 4 people in each section because the hot air balloon is not just one big basket. If you've never done this before, there are 4 different sections of the balloon squared off. 4 people per section is how it works. It was so really fun. We laid down for the takeoff because of the wind. I thought that was super cool. I did not do that in Australia. And speaking about Australia, this balloon was 100 times better than the Australian balloon. Like, the Australian one was cool, I guess, whatever, because I had never done it before. But this one was so cool because you get to actually see animals and stuff. If you have to ever make the decision about which balloon should I fly, do this one, because obviously they are very expensive excursions. Like, the price is pretty crazy. Unfortunately, they have raised it. It used to be $40 cheaper, I think, but I ended up paying this price anyway. We didn't only see wildebeest, we also saw other animals that weren't part of the migration, like zebras, hyenas. They were all just running, and I did feel bad. Every time he would pull the lever to make the fire come out, it was pretty loud, and it would scare them, and they would all start running, because if we were just floating over them, they didn't care, but it was just the fire that was scaring them. So I did really feel bad about that part. Since we only saw like mostly the migration and a few other animals, I wonder how many animals you would see otherwise if the migration wasn't happening. So that's what I'm talking about when I say it depends on the season. I am really not sure what it would look like if the migration hadn't been happening, so I would be tentative to recommend it because it is so expensive. Personally, I would only say do it if the migration's happening, or ask your safari guide once you start the trip, because you can add it after, but I think the price does go up. So ask them in the chat if possible before the trip, because I'm just not sure what you would be seeing otherwise if all the wildebeest hadn't been there. But if you are going during the Great Migration, absolutely book it. You need to do it. When in your life are you going to have the chance to fly over the Great Migration again? Honestly, probably never. Through this excursion, you also get a breakfast in the bush after, but the people who hadn't booked this also joined us at the breakfast, so I think you get to do it either way. And if you choose not to do this excursion, you get a more private, like, morning safari, so it's not like you're just sitting at the hotel waiting for us to come back. You do get to go do something. During the private safari, they saw stuff we hadn't seen yet, so there are decisions to make when it comes to this. I know that the price is a really big factor, but I would say the season is the biggest factor. But the breakfast was huge. It was everybody who was flying in all of the balloons. I had thought it was just going to be the F group, but it was everybody that flew in the balloons. So just so you know, it's a ginormous breakfast for tons and tons of people. If you do the balloon, you do get the option to buy your video of everybody who flew. So after splitting it, it was only like $5 per person. So we bought the video. That was a super cool memento to have because they put a GoPro up and you can see our balloon flying over all the animals. So that was awesome. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the balloon. It's really up to you. I think it is a hard decision to make, but when again are you going to get this chance, you know? So for the balloon, I'm giving it an 1,000 out of 10. An incredible experience to say the least. Okay, and third excursion was the Maasai tribe visit. I think everybody should do this. Everyone should learn about the Maasai and everyone should see how they live. You are in Kenya. This is the only cultural experience that they offer, so I think it's important to do it, and it's only $30. So why not support the Maasai and learn about their culture? You are in Masai Mara after all. You're in their land, pay their respect, learn about them, and interacting with them was really cool. First, when you get there, you walk up and they come out and they just start singing and dancing, and that's your welcome. So they pull everybody up. Everybody has to. I'm not a dancer and I hate things like this, but you're kind of forced. So everyone dances for a while and then they pull the men in the circle to jump with the Maasai. The women are not allowed to do this. It's part of their culture. I know it's unfair. The women are brought in to like shimmy their shoulders. I think that's what we do instead. So we did that for probably like 20 minutes, half hour. It was long. Just know when they start singing, it takes a long time for them to stop. That's how it was all across Africa when I went to Kenya and Tanzania. After that, they took us back to see their houses and how they live, taught us how they make fire, and then they showed us some tools that they use every day. We got to go inside the houses and see where they sleep and how they spend their nights. The Maasai visit and the sunrise hot air balloon are on the same day, so it is a jam-packed day. You go from the balloon to a game drive all day, and then to the Maasai visit, and then you have less than an hour before your farewell dinner. If you book everything, it is back to back to back to back for this day, and that is why I think we should add another day in Masai Mara. I'll talk about that later, but it was just a packed full day. But after the Maasai talk to you about how they live and everything, they give you an option to buy some of the tools that they handed all of us, and then they take us back to the souvenir place where they have tables lined up of pretty much all the same stuff, which is what makes it hard, because then it comes down to the person and which person you're trying to support, instead of like, oh, this person has this stuff and this person has that stuff, you know? So that was kind of hard, but just know that going into it, I guess. For the Masai Mara visit, I'm gonna give a 9 out of 10. I think it's really important, but learning about them and how they live and how they've lived for so long, that's really the coolest part. Still, I think everybody should do this. Everybody should play their part in supporting them and supporting the locals. It was only an hour and it's only $30, so why not, guys? To be honest, all of the EF optionals were worth it to me. Maybe the boat safari is the only one that I would be hesitant to book, just because, I don't know, it wasn't anything amazing. It was really just a time filler. It was cheap, and that's why I'm like, whatever. If you don't want to book it and you want to take a nap instead, do that. But for the balloon ride, if you are going in August, I cannot stress enough to book it. Like, please book it. I don't know. Even if you don't get lucky and you don't fly right over the migration, seeing the sunrise from a balloon is still amazing, and you have no idea what other animals are going to be out there, what else you could see. It's just endless possibilities, and you're up in the air for like an hour and a half, so it is a long time, even though it felt like 20 seconds. We were up there. It felt so short because it was so fun. Please book it. Please book it. It is a lot of money, I know, but once in a lifetime experience, truly. So now I'm going to talk about tour director editions. My tour director was Eric. He was amazing. If you get Eric, tell him I say hi. I'm not sure if he's going to remember my name without my face, but we were in his Jeep, so we spent lots and lots of time together. He listened to our insane conversations, usually getting to talk to him, getting to learn about what living in Kenya is like, and being a safari guide. Like, that's such a cool job. If you go on this tour, like, please get to know your driver, no matter if he's your tour director or not. All of them are super friendly. But I'm getting off track now. Back to the excursions. He offered 3 optional excursions, the first being a giraffe sanctuary visit for $11. We got to feed them and it was super cool. It was a super fun intro into animal interaction while you're still in the city in Nairobi. It was super cheap. It was only $11 that you paid for the food, and then you get to feed all the giraffes. There's no limit on the viewing platform. You get to spend as much time as you can there feeding the giraffes, so it just depends on your TD schedule. We got so many cool videos, so many cool pictures. I haven't been able to feed a giraffe in the US before, so I thought it was a really cool experience. Even though one bit my hand, which was not the most fun, it was still a really cool excursion, I thought. I loved getting to see the giraffes up close because there's no guarantee you'll be able to do so during safari. The second optional excursion was a visit to Hell's Gate National Park, and it was $65 just for an afternoon. It's definitely not cheap, but I thought it was really worth it. A 5-mile bike ride. I don't want to let that scare you. You can also go in the Jeep if you don't want to ride a bike, or you can walk if you for some reason want to do that instead. We didn't see as many animals as I was expecting to see. Pretty much just some zebras in the beginning, and then we just saw the beauty of the park. So I will say this was not the most comfortable path to bike on. It was just dirt and rocks the whole way. So don't wear denim shorts like I did because it was not fun. But don't wear linen pants either. Like some other girls, it kept getting caught in their spokes and they were just over it. So they ended up riding in the Jeep instead, which I'm sure was fun with the guides, but it's definitely over a lot quicker. Only about a mile in, we all stopped and like did a photo stop. We all yelled at this giant wall. They call it the Echo Wall.
1, 2, 3.
Jumbo! That's so cool! So we all yelled like Jumbo, and then we heard it back so clearly, and we did it a few times. So that was a really cool experience. I've never done that before, so that kind of blew my mind. I'm not sure why, but it was just a really cool part. After that, you just ride the rest of the 5 miles. Just make sure you have closed-toed shoes or like Tevas, something that's gonna strap onto your foot if you're biking. And if you're planning on doing this, just make sure you wear the right shorts or pants because it's very uncomfortable to be wearing something that hurts when you're going over rocks. PSA. Like, the path was bumpy. Like, I was getting annoyed by the end because there were so many rocks and we couldn't avoid them. Also, if you're doing this, make sure you bring sunglasses, even if it's not sunny, just to protect your eyes from all the dust, because some Jeeps are going to be going past you, stirring up lots of dust if the bikes in front of you aren't already doing so. So just make sure you have something to protect your eyes, and don't wear anything white because you're going to be coated in dust after this excursion. Everybody's feet were so dirty. Luckily, I wore my hiking boots, so it didn't matter to me. Everybody else's feet were like caked in dust after this. An extra in this is after the bike ride, you go on a short walk. It's like maybe 10 minutes of a walk down to Oribi Gorge. That's apparently where the rock is that they based Pride Rock off of in The Lion King. I didn't really believe it when they told us that because it looked nothing like Pride Rock, but it was an interesting fact if it is true. So you got to take some pictures there. It was a gorgeous lookout, but in no way is it a hike. I've heard other people call it a hike. My tour director called it a hike, and it was like a 10-minute walk. Calm down, guys. It's not a hike, but that will take up most of your day at Lake Naivasha. If you choose not to book this, then you are just sitting in your room in Lake Naivasha, and the Wi-Fi is not good, PSA. So if you're planning on doing stuff, the Wi-Fi pretty much only reaches the lobby again. Those are your options, sitting at the hotel or doing this. So pretty much the entire group, except for one person, chose to do this excursion just because there's nothing else to do. So the last optional excursion is a game drive in Nairobi National Park. This was $100. Definitely not cheap, but it does get your entry, it pays the guides, and it pays for the Jeeps. It was a good amount of time. I think we had about like 3-hour game drive, so it wasn't super short or anything. And this was the completion to our big 5. We did get to see rhinos, lots and lots of rhinos in this park. I think we saw 10, and they said that was a low for what they usually see. They said they usually see like 30 in a game drive. So apparently we saw the minimum. You'll probably see a lot more. We also saw a big group of lionesses just snoozing before we headed to the airport. So if you choose not to book this, you are just going to be sitting at the Nairobi hotel. It does have Wi-Fi if that's your main concern. It is a nicer hotel than what we were staying at, but it's your last afternoon in Africa, and I would strongly encourage you to do do this game drive, especially if you haven't seen rhinos before, because there weren't any rhinos in any of the other parks that we saw. So this was our only chance. And we saw a little baby and it was really, really cute. It was an exciting game drive for sure. Everybody loved being able to just fit in one more game drive before heading home, because you go straight to the airport after this. You just want one more game drive with everybody in your Jeep. You just don't want the experience to end. Everybody kept saying like, I can't believe this is our last game drive. I'm gonna be so sad to leave everybody and to not be doing this anymore. Safari truly is like such a unique experience. I had never had any kind of excursion like this before. The adrenaline rush of trying to find X animal, or hearing on the radio them saying something, if your driver just gunning it like through the park and you have no idea what you're going to see, but it's so exciting, like with everybody in your Jeep being so excited, like what are we gonna see? There's just nothing else like it, honestly, truly. So book this. I 10 out of 10 recommend this excursion. The two girls that didn't book this only didn't go because they couldn't, because they had to catch their flights early at the airport. One girl did have flights booked through EF and one girl didn't. She chose to book her flights that early. Big mistake, because you get most of your trip cut off. It really sucks that that girl had flights booked by EF and they still did that to her and made her go early. But if you are booking your own flights, make sure it's booked past 9 p.m. and then you'll be able to do everything with the group. I'll talk about that more in my extra tips section, but 9 p.m. or later, remember that. Because if anyone in your group has an earlier flight, this also affects how early you leave Masai Mara. We had to leave at like 6 a.m. The whole group had to leave just so those girls could make their flights. So yeah, that was a little rough. Ended up working out for everybody. We got a game drive. For independent activities, I personally didn't do any, but a bunch of people in my group did book a Get Your Guide excursion on the first full day. They ended up booking an elephant excursion plus the giraffe center day trip. Our tour director did work out with their Get Your Guide leader. They would be able to do everything that we were doing anyway, so they still got to go see the bead market. They still got to eat our included lunch with us, so that was really nice. And we ended up leaving at the same time, so I guess we just had extra time certain places. They paid $50 per person. I will link it down below just in case you want to check it out. They really enjoyed the elephant sanctuary, and if your tour director isn't already offering the giraffe sanctuary, I would definitely recommend booking this so you can do both. After doing an elephant sanctuary in Thailand, I didn't feel the need to do one here, so that's the reason I didn't book. But the elephant sanctuary was not feeding, it was just looking, and they said if an elephant walked past you, you could stick your hand out and pet. And the sanctuary was technically in Nairobi National Park, so you're educated on every elephant that's there and their story, but definitely not as interactive as the one I did in Thailand. But I think that's just how it is in Kenya. I don't think they really offer stuff like that because they can feed themselves. Everyone I talked to who went really enjoyed it, and the company will transfer you everywhere. Hopefully, if you do this, your tour director does the same thing as ours did and still brings you to the included lunch and to the bead excursion, so you don't miss out on anything either. But I think that can just be arranged with your tour director once the trip starts, so I'll just link it in the description if you want to check that out. So now we have moved on from excursions to transportation. This is going to be really fast because we only had two methods of transportation and one was only for the first day. For the first day, we took a bus around Nairobi. Since half of our group was doing the elephant excursion that I just talked about, we only had maybe max 10 people left. We all were in one of the mini buses that picked us up from the airport all day. We rode around in that. If the rest of our group was supposed to be with us, I wonder if we would have had another mini bus or if we would have had a big bus. I don't know. But that bus was not the most comfortable, so I was glad it was only for one day. But moving on to your main method of transportation, the safari jeep. For the safari jeeps, we had 22 people in our group, so that meant we had to split up into 4 jeeps. We had 2 groups of 5 and 2 groups of 6. I was in one of the groups of 5 and we went with our main tour director Eric. He was also our safari guide in our jeep. Each jeep has their own driver and safari guide as one person. The safari guide is driving you everywhere in the national parks and throughout the different stops, so you get to know them very well. They're all great people. I love talking to the other drivers when we had the chance. They were super personable, funny guys. So the Jeep itself was extremely comfortable. The seats are actually really cushy, and because some of the roads when you're in the park can be so bumpy, like the seats definitely move to absorb that shock a little bit. The Jeeps had charging ports. Our charging ports didn't really work, to be honest, but it's nice they're there. I don't know about the other Jeeps, but ours just didn't work, and it would have been great if they did because I honestly needed that pretty frequently. But I will say, when selecting your Jeep group, it is kind of important because you are going to be with these people all day, every day. Our Jeep got extremely close and I got really lucky with the people that were in my Jeep because we're all really good friends now. But if there is someone on the first day you're like kind of not vibing with, I would say try not to be in their Jeep because you're gonna be stuck with them for the rest of the trip if you end up in a Jeep with them. The Jeep felt like home for real, like once we got to the end of this trip, because we were in the Jeep so much. I do kind of miss the Jeep, but you'll learn to love it. Now we're going to move on to money and budgeting. I will preface this with, because this is a pretty expensive trip, but all the meals are included, this is the least amount of money that I've ever spent on an EF trip. So while we were there, the conversion rate was about 129 Kenyan shillings to $1 USD. For excursions, I spent $177 because I booked everything. For food, I only spent $19 because only one meal was not included. For our lunch in Nairobi, when you get back, that's the only meal that I spent money on, plus coffees on the road. For souvenirs, I only spent $65 because I bought this t-shirt and a different one and a few other random things. And for tips, I spent $70. So total, I spent $329. It's honestly not that much. It's the EF excursions I did not include in this because I would think that's the trip total. That was definitely a hefty bill, paying for the EF excursions. Did pretty well. Didn't spend an insane amount of money like I usually do. On souvenirs, I did kind of hold myself back. Lots of other people that were not doing so definitely spent a lot more money on gifts for themselves or gifts for friends. So depends on how you spend your money. On the topic of money, for tips, I was lucky enough to only have to tip one person because my safari driver was the same as our tour director, same person. So the other people did have to bring enough money for 2 tips. We did go to an ATM at one point if you want to tip in shillings, but they accept USD or shillings everywhere. The guides will accept USD for tips. You don't have to pay them in shillings, but if you do end up getting a different driver to your TD, you should tip 2 people. So you should bring enough cash for that if you don't want to go to an ATM, but obviously that is up to you. All the drivers were super amazing, so I'm pretty sure everybody in our group tipped their driver as well as Eric, our TD. But talking about money, they took cards surprisingly in most places. Like, I did not really have to use cash at all besides tips. Yeah, you don't have to be stressed about having to pay in cash everywhere because they took cards. So just bring enough USD for tips. They take USD everywhere. You do not need to take out Kenyan shillings pre-departure. If you run out of money and do need to go to an ATM, obviously you can pay in shillings. But yeah, you don't need to be too stressed about money for this because it's super convenient that they have tap to pay everywhere. Okay, now we are on one of the most important sections, packing. First, I'm going to go over clothes breakdown, and then I'm going to go on extra essentials. So to preface clothes, your best bet for safari wear is going to be shades of tan, brown, and green. Off-white can also work, but since it's so dusty, it is going to be a little brown by the end of the trip. Also, shades of gray can work, but do not bring blue or black because tsetse flies are attracted to those colors, so you don't want to be swarmed by flies. That's a tip for you. But you can see examples of what I wore in my vlog or on my Instagram at Anna Richter. You can check those out. So this greatly depends on which season you're going in. We went in US's summer, so Africa's winter, and it was actually cold, guys. Like, we were wearing jackets, pants, like full outfits. Don't think it's gonna be blazing hot because it was not. I had brought a fleece for travel I was doing after, and I was wearing it like pretty much every day. So definitely bring one warm jacket if you're going in their winter. If you're going in their summer, I am not sure about the temperatures or how it's gonna feel, but since there are so many early mornings and later nights when you go get dinner, you probably want at least one warmer jacket. So this is pretty much for winter. I would pack 2 pairs of shorts max if you're going in the winter. It's pretty much only warm in Masai Mara. I was wearing pants mostly, just flowy linen pants. So I would bring 5 pairs of safari appropriate pants. Linen flowy is going to be your best bet, or like cargo pants kind of vibe. But I probably brought more shorts than I needed. I brought like 4 pairs. I would say you can totally get away with 2. So if it's winter, I also brought a few long sleeve, and I thought it was perfect for the Lake Naivasha day, especially biking in Hell's Gate. I was glad I had something dark on because it was so dusty. So a long sleeve really worked out. I would bring like 7 different tops, mixing around like tees and tanks, depending on which season you're going. I did buy lots of t-shirts. So if you love to collect t-shirts from where you're going, your first day in Nairobi is your best bet. So definitely look for them there. And it really worked out because the t-shirts that I bought happened to be safari colors. So I wore them during the game drives anyway. I had packed mostly tank tops thinking it was going to be hot, but I didn't need to be wearing tank tops because it was not that warm. It's only going to be really hot in the afternoons. Think desert weather if you've ever been to the desert. I went to school in Arizona, so I was very familiar, but it's cold in the mornings, cold at night, and then when the sun's out, it's pretty hot. But it was only really hot one day in Masai Mara when we had our entire day game drive. That's when the sun was super strong. It was toasty. But other than that, I never really felt hot. So in summer, I can imagine it probably is really hot. Obviously, I have no experience, so I don't know what to tell you. But if you are going in summer and dry season, I would maybe bring one jacket, a few pairs of pants, and then shorts and tank tops and t-shirts and whatever. But I think bringing layers is your best bet because I'd rather have enough clothes to be wearing and being able to take things off than being way too cold. So I did bring one layer like linen shirt. It was gray, so I didn't have to worry about dust staining it, but I would bring one like layer shirt that can go on top of your tank top or whatever you're wearing. And if you are going in the summer, I would bring maybe 1 to 2 swimsuits in case it's that hot and between your morning and afternoon game drives you want to swim. But if you're going in the winter, you do not need a swimsuit. None of us swam. None of us were hot enough to go in a pool, so you don't have to worry about that. Shoes wise, my Jeep shoes were Birkenstocks. Super easy to take off when you need to stand on the seats because they don't allow you to stand on the seats with shoes on. If you see anything, you just want to be able to stand up and look out as soon as possible, so wearing something that can just slide on and off is your best bet in the Jeep. If you are doing the hot air balloon or want to do biking in Hell's Gate, you do need something secure, but for the hot air balloon specifically, you do need closed-toed shoes. I had hiking boots for the second half of my travels, so I just wore those, but any closed-toed shoes will work. Just bring one pair if you're planning on doing that. But for the rest of the time, I think I wore my Birkenstocks for all of the rest of it. I never needed closed-toed shoes besides when it was required. I only whipped out my hiking boots for the bike ride and for the air balloon. Okay, now for extra essentials. I did buy a lot of stuff on Amazon pre this trip. My Amazon list is linked in the description. Go ahead and check it out. Everything I bought for this trip will be on there, specifically in the Kenya list, because I do have a separate Tanzania list that is for hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, so disregard that unless that's also part of your plan. So the first essential you need is a safari/sun hat. I wore this one and it worked out great, especially when you're in Masai Mara. And since the top is open, you don't want to get a scalp burn. That can definitely hurt a lot, but this also kept the dust out of my scalp because it is really dusty during these game drives. Next is sunglasses. Do not forget your sunglasses for this trip. I think this was the most important trip to have sunglasses because of all the dust that I just talked about.
There's so much dust.
It's very dusty.
Also, it helps spotting animals. It's super sunny out, so don't forget your sunglasses. For bug protection, I brought these off wipes. I honestly did not open one of these up. I also brought DEET spray, so we primarily used that, but once we realized
There's not really any bugs.
we stopped using bug spray or bug wipes altogether. We also were taking malaria medicine, so we weren't as worried about the bugs, but if you choose not to take malaria medicine, I would definitely make sure you have DEET in your spray just to be super cautious. Since it was the winter, we really did not see any mosquitoes. No one really got bitten. I just stopped applying bug spray altogether just because I was like, there's not any mosquitoes here. Also, you're on the move so much, I feel like there's no time for you to get swarmed by whatever bugs. In Masai Mara, there were some flies, but that was the only bug interaction that I had. But if you are going in their summer, I would make sure you're protected. I don't know if there's more bug activity then, but at least have some wipes or something just in case. A power bank is also really important for this trip because you're in the Jeep for so long and you have such long rides. You're not always going to be able to be charged, so make sure you have a rechargeable battery with you. An international adapter is also needed for this trip. That's also linked in my Amazon. In Kenya, they use the UK plug, so that's the one we were using the entire time. Funny enough, because it's the UK plug, your American plugs do work usually. I would not bank on this fact, especially if you're going to Africa, you're probably going to be doing more traveling in the future, so just get an international adapter. But some places, your American plugs do work inside the UK plugs. I would definitely bring a reusable water bottle for this trip. If you watched my vlog, you did see that we do get EF water bottles provided to us during the trip, but before that, through the airplane ride, through everything, I just like to have a water bottle with me because I always need water. So lots of people didn't have any water before this because you cannot drink the tap water in Kenya. The hotels do provide water in all of your rooms, but it's glass bottles, so do you really want to bring that around? It would be easier to just fill up your water bottle. Just bring a small one so you have water available to you before you get the EF water bottles. You also really, no matter what season you're going, you need sunscreen. The UV is pretty high in Kenya. You need it for your body and your face. Because the top is open, you can totally get sun exposure during the game drive. Definitely be prepared on that front because this trip for a lot of people is once in a lifetime and this might be the only safari you ever get to go on. You want to have something to document all of the animals that you see that's better than an iPhone. This camera is obviously not cutting it. I loved it for the memories. We took tons of cute pictures on it, but the camera I'm filming on is my nice camera. I was lucky enough to go on a trip with a bunch of people that had really nice cameras with the big fancy zoom lenses, so we got tons of great pictures of everything that we saw. I don't think you can bank on the fact that that's going to happen for you. If you have the skill and you want to make sure that you're going to get good pictures from this trip, I would bring your nice camera if you already have one, or think about renting one. Even if you have the body but you don't have the lens, think about renting one of the giant fancy zoom lenses for this trip, just because it's going to be so useful. My brother came with me and he got a camera and a lens just for this trip. It was definitely expensive, don't get me wrong, but the pictures he got were so incredible, and I'm just really glad that we have all of those pictures to look back on from our safari together. It's super nice nice that other people in other Jeeps, like things we didn't necessarily get to see, they could document with their nice cameras what they saw. So we got to see those too, and everybody shared their pictures, and it was just really nice to have. So think about renting if you don't already have one. This is also going into my next point, binoculars. One of the girls in our Jeep rented binoculars, and they were so useful during the trip. We couldn't see tons of stuff, but with her binoculars we were able to. There was one point where a leopard like brought prey up into the tree, and we couldn't see the prey with our naked eye, but with the binoculars we were able to find it and see what it was. It just added to the experience so much. So I would definitely recommend renting binoculars, super nice ones. Make sure they're not cheap or there's really no point if you don't already have any. Another important thing to have is a Jeep bag. I just used my regular little fanny pack, threw in what I needed, and then there's a seat pocket in the Jeep. You can just put this in, but definitely have some sort of Jeep bag that just has all your stuff ready to go. Your walk from your room to the Jeep can be kind of far, and it's easy when it's game time to just grab your stuff and go. Going off of that, you need Jeep entertainment. There are long drives, not as long, I will say, as I've experienced before on youth trips. Most of them were just 5 or 6 hours, maybe 4. So just have some kind of entertainment. Lots of people brought books. I brought just my AirPods. I did bring my iPad that has books on it, and I did read like a little bit between our morning game drive and our afternoon game drive. It was nice to read between those and just relax. But in the Jeep, I mostly just listen to music. So just make sure you have something to entertain you for those long rides. And my last essential is something you can't get on Amazon, but it is malaria meds. This is obviously your decision. I only did it just because it was free with my insurance, I'm gonna be honest. If it is a big cost to you, I can see why you might not want to do it. And if so, if that's your plan, I would say go in the winter because there's less bugs, less risk of contracting malaria. But if you are planning on it, definitely don't forget to bring your malaria meds. I will say, like, lots of people on my trip said they weren't taking it. Lots of people were, so it was probably 50-50. I didn't really hear about anyone having any symptoms. I had no symptoms. My brother had no symptoms. Just make sure you take it with food. And I will repeat this in my extra tip section, but it can mess your stomach up if you take it on an empty stomach. So if you are going to take them, make sure you take it with your breakfast. Okay, we are officially at our last section of this review. We are at the most important section, arguably, the extra tip section. So get ready for my extra tips. The first one is if you are booking your own flights and planning to do so, definitely make sure your departing flight is after 9 p.m. I already mentioned this in the excursion section. Everybody else that books with EF will most likely be flying out at about 10 something, 11 something. You have that day to do an extra game drive if your TD adds that on. Because you're booking your own flight, you definitely don't want to miss that just because you have a flight at 1 p.m. or whatever. It's also a travel day. You're going to be coming from Masai Mara back to Nairobi, so it puts a lot of stress on them. If your flight is any earlier than like 4 p.m., it really stresses them out. So make sure your flight is after 9 p.m. so you can do everything and not be stressed, and so your guides aren't stressed. Because missing out on that last game drive, I know the 2 girls that had to go to the airport early were really upset about it. So just make sure you leave everything open for you to do everything that you want to do and to make the most out of your 6 days in Africa. But a tip for your flight in, if you are booking your own flights, try to arrive in the afternoon. If you arrive late at night, when we did, it's super busy at the Nairobi airport because most international flights are arriving then. If you can, try to get an afternoon flight. You will get through immigration much faster. It won't take you hours. That's another tip for you. And just make sure you're looking at the EF itinerary because technically we're arriving on the 2nd day of the trip and leaving on the 8th out of 10 days. So just make sure you double check that. Don't book your flights on the wrong days. I already talked about this in the money section, but I am going to reiterate just because it's kind of important. You can bring all cash in USD for this trip. Most places also took cards, so you don't have to worry about paying in shillings or having shillings on hand before you get to Kenya. You don't need shillings at all, to be quite honest. Just make sure you have some cash enough for tips in smaller bills in USD and bring a card and you'll be fine. Ready to go. We brought all of our cash in USD and made sure the biggest bill was 20. So we brought 5s, 10s, 20s, and we were perfectly fine getting through Kenya. I paid for everything on card except for tips, so totally worked out. And make sure you have extra for tips because the hospitality in Kenya, as I said in the accommodation section, is unmatched. I've honestly never experienced such great hospitality. These people are lugging your giant bags like from the lobby to your room, which can be super far. So it's just nice to like show your appreciation. If you are gonna bring cash, make sure you bring a little extra to tip them. So for luggage, duffels are definitely the way to go. I brought a duffel bag and so did my brother. If you don't have one, you can easily go to Walmart and just pick one up for like 20 bucks, or you can bring a carry-on. A small carry-on suitcase will also work. People in my trip did that too, but I would say don't bring a giant hard shell suitcase for this because there's not enough space in the Jeep trunks. You also don't need that many clothes for this trip. You don't need to pack that much. And if you want to see what I packed, you can just go to my blog. It's in the very beginning, but just get a $20 rolling duffel. When selecting your Jeep groups, I would definitely suggest trying to be in one of the Jeeps with less people. Since we were only 5, we had 2 seats behind us. The Jeep can technically fit 8 people, including the driver. So we had 2 extra seats behind us, and I could just throw my bags back there, which was great space-wise. And also during safari, if I saw something on the opposite side of the car, I could just go in the back row and get to that side and get a view of whatever it was. That was really, really great during safari, especially, as well as comfort just during the drive. That's my tip for you. And to be closer to the back so you have that extra row. It just happened like that for me, but it really worked out. Tap water is not drinkable in Kenya, so I would definitely recommend bringing a water bottle. EF does provide you with a water bottle once you start the safari portion of your trip, but I always need water, so I liked having my own for extra water and just for those times that we didn't have the EF water bottle yet. So I thought it was much more convenient to have my own and the EF water bottle. Going off of that, no single-use plastic water bottles are allowed in the national parks. So if that was your plan for some reason, you're not going to be able to bring it. You shouldn't be planning on single-use plastics at all for this trip. That's another tip I have that I'll touch on in a second, but just make sure you have a reusable water bottle and not single-use plastic. Talking about the single-use plastic, Kenya does not allow you to bring in single-use plastic bags. So like things that we use for trash bags here in the States, you're not allowed to bring those in. Ziplocs are allowed, but they do need to be in use. So you need to have stuff inside them and to be actively using them as you immigrate into Kenya. They do scan your bags for plastics. So just a tip for you. Touched on this in the packing section, but safari colors, you're going to want to pack mainly tan, brown, green shades. So definitely don't bring blue or black because TZ flies are attracted to those colors. Focus on those shades, maybe some off-white colors. They will get dusty, or grays, but try to stay away from blue and black. If you are going in the winter, I did mention this before, bring a warm jacket because so many girls on tour did not think it was going to be cold, but it was cold. And I was in my fleece and I was still cold. So I was really glad I brought a jacket, but a lot of people had to buy them there and they were not cheap because they were the resort jackets. So make sure you bring one warm jacket that you can layer over your safari outfit if you're going in the winter, because it's not as hot as you think it's going to be. Because it's like desert weather, mornings and nights are very chilly. So definitely have a jacket that you can put on and take off for those times, especially because the Jeep's going to be open. You're going to be getting wind blown on you. Like it's going to be cold in the mornings. Another tip I have is to wear shoes in the Jeep that are super easy to take on and off. Being able to rip my shoes off or just like not even put them on, to be honest, during game drives and being able to stand up on those seats to see whatever we're trying to see was the best game plan in my opinion. So don't go wearing like sneakers that you have to lace and unlace because you're going to lose valuable time trying to see whatever animal. During safari, it can be like that and the shot or the view can be gone. So you never know. Time is of the essence. Definitely have easy shoes that you can just slide off because shoes are not allowed on seats in the Jeeps. So make sure you have socks or something or bare feet that you can stand on the seats with. So one of my biggest tips is if you're prone to motion sickness, bring Dramamine for this trip. Lots of the roads are very, very bumpy. In the beginning, going into Amboseli, there are some ditches that you have to like drive on and the Jeep's literally like sideways. Definitely have Dramamine ready to go. I know my brother and one of the girls in our Jeep was popping it every single day, maybe multiple times a day. If you're prone to car sickness, definitely bring Dramamine. I just talked about this in packing, but bring binoculars. Like you don't think they're going to be as useful as they are. I tried to get them the day before we were leaving, like very last minute, and there weren't any in stock at Walmart. So be proactive and try to rent some really nice ones. A girl brought a rented Canon pair and they were so great. We could see crystal clear, super far away because most of the animals aren't going to be right next to your Jeep. Surprise, like they're going to be far away. The binoculars came in clutch and I 10 out of 10 recommend bringing a pair. I touched on this in packing also, but definitely have entertainment available for the long Jeep rides. We were in there like 6-7 hours sometimes, so you definitely want something to entertain you if you're not going to sleep the whole time. AirPods, books, something, because the service is very spotty. Even if you have an eSIM, don't rely on your phone to be able to load Instagram or whatever constantly because you're in national parks. Like definitely have something with you other than your phone to entertain you. Going off of that, the service with Verizon and T-Mobile were pretty consistent. While we were driving, my service was not very good and I have T-Mobile and it's just included in my plan. Lots of people while we were at the lodges or the hotels were like, wow, like I have great data right now, even if the Wi-Fi didn't reach our rooms. That's a good tip. But if you're thinking about paying for the $10 a day plans, don't do that, guys. Like pay for an eSIM. If you've never used one before, you can get an eSIM through Airlo or Holofly. You can get coverage from a local SIM in Kenya. So it's super easy to do. You don't have to get a physical SIM. It's an eSIM. You just follow their steps and you just activate it with codes. They're super cheap, super affordable, especially for a trip this short. So I would definitely recommend getting an eSIM instead of paying $100 for 10 days of service in Kenya. Like why? And going off of that, I do have a code with Airlo if you you haven't used them before, this gets you dollars off. So if you're getting a cheap plan already, you could be paying like $7 for service. That's in this description as well. To talk about this one more time, the winter was way less buggy than I expected. We honestly did not run into mosquitoes practically at all. I was super nervous about the bugs going in just because of malaria and yellow fever and whatever. I was taking the malaria medicine, and honestly, if I wasn't continuing travel after this trip, I would have stopped because we didn't run into any mosquitoes. If you want the least amount of bugs, I would say plan for their winter. So our summer, their winter, and if you're already doing that, just go in August during the Great Migration, have the best trip ever. Also, it's dry season during their summer, so you won't run into any rain. I think it rained like once overnight and that was it. So we had just fantastic weather. It was a great time to go during dry season. There's a lot of overlap between my extra tips and the packing section, but if you didn't watch that section, definitely try to rent a nice camera if you want solid pictures from this trip, or if you don't have one already, or borrow one from a friend if you know a friend has one, because so many people got amazing photos from this trip, and we were lucky enough to have lots of people with nice cameras. But if it was just me and my iPhone, it would have been so sad because I got some cool videos and stuff using the cinematic mode, but it just does not compare to their ability to get the shots. I'll show a picture between one I got on my iPhone and one that their cameras got, because are you kidding? This is insane. So I know they're super expensive, but rent one if you don't have access to one otherwise, or you can roll the dice and see if someone brings one. But being able to document this trip is, I think, a huge part of it. And if we had no photos or ways to document everything we saw, I would have been really sad. Safari might be once in a lifetime, and since Safari changes every single day, you're not going to get that moment back. Just make sure you have something to be able to document this trip with. Going off of that, talking about Safari is just the most unique experience, and I would really, really encourage you to go into it with zero expectations. That is pretty much what I did. Of course, everybody wants to see the big five, everyone wants to be able to check every animal off, but it's truly roll of the dice. You have no idea what's going to be out there. You can never guarantee anything, but your drivers are doing their best also. Like, they are really trying to find the coolest thing or stuff you haven't seen yet. They do their jobs and they do them really well. So just go with the flow is really all I can say. Like, your drivers will take you to the best spots. They're always listening to the radio, always ready to go to wherever you need to go. So just enjoy the ride and see what the savannah brings you is all I can say. Just really enjoy it, because I wish I could go back. So for medicine, bring Imodium and Pepto just in case. I had no stomach issues during this trip, which was amazing because you are mostly just eating hotel food, but I would bring it just in case. You never know what's going to happen. Make sure you're not using any of the tap water. You never want to have a stomach issue and be unprepared. It's not like you're in a city in Europe and you can just go to a pharmacy and get what you need. On this trip, you will be in the middle of a national park. Sure, the lodge might have something. Bring everything medicine-wise you could possibly need, because you will not be able to access a pharmacy on the regular. 2 people in our Jeep had some stomach issues. They were moderate, nothing like we experienced in Thailand where everybody was dying, but just be prepared. Like, just have what you might need, and if you don't need it, great. So I mentioned this before, but I'm just going to reiterate just in case you missed it. If you are going to take the malaria medicine, just make sure you take it with food, because if you take it on an empty stomach, it can really mess you up. I luckily didn't do this. I had heard this tip before, so I made sure to take it at night after I eat a solid dinner. I had no symptoms. My brother had no symptoms. No one I knew really had any symptoms except for one girl in our Jeep, but she has a ton of other medical stuff going on. But yeah, don't be afraid of the crazy dreams thing. I mean, I personally can't talk because I get crazy dreams every single night without medication. So if you are going to take the medicine, make sure you take it with food is what I'm trying to say. Also talked about this in the money section, but if you're going on this trip, just make sure you have enough cash to tip your TD and possibly your Safari driver if they end up not being the same person. It ended up being the same person for me, but for 3 other groups it wasn't. So just make sure you have enough cash to tip both people, because they're both going to be amazing. They're both going to be doing the most to make sure you have a great experience, and every guide we had was incredible. Okay, this is my final thought. Not really a tip, but a thought on the itinerary. I wish EF would either add a day in Masai Mara. So the hot air balloon Masai tri-visit wasn't on the same day because it was just a jam-packed day. Like, we were so tired, and then you have to wake up early and leave the next day. It would be so much better if we had more time to explore Masai Mara, because it's such a big park. So if we had more time for game drives and just to rest, that would be great. So I wish they would add a 3rd day Masai Mara, or I wish they would just get rid of Lake Naivasha in its entirety. Hell's Gate was super cool, but I would rather have another day in Masai Mara. So I wish they would just get rid of Lake Naivasha, fly us from Amboseli to Masai Mara, and just call it a day. I know obviously that changes the budget, but we don't need Lake Naivasha. We really don't. So we have made it to the end of this video. Overall, no surprise, this trip's rating is a 10 out of 5. After 10 trips with EF, this was my favorite trip I have ever been on, and that is saying a lot because I've been on so many amazing trips with EF, but that's really a testament to how truly incredible this trip is. If you are even thinking about booking this trip a little bit, please, please, please book it. I cannot say enough good things about it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Safari is so out of this world. I need to go back. I know I'm gonna go back someday just because of how amazing it was, but I feel like Kenya does not get the hype it deserves. Like, everyone's going to Europe, you should be going to Africa. So I don't know if anything's gonna beat this trip. I'm kind of scared that nothing will, but I have never felt magic as I did on safari in Kenya. Nothing has ever been close to as magical. So I hope I have persuaded you enough to go live your safari dreams. I hope that this helped you out if you were on the verge of thinking about booking this trip, but there's so many other places. Guys, you won't regret it. I'm telling you, you will not regret going to Kenya and going on safari, especially if you're an animal lover. This is gonna be your heaven. If you grew up watching Animal Planet like I did, nothing beats this, honestly. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram at Anna Richter. I truly love going on these trips and making these reviews. So if you want to see any other type of review about anything else, feel free to ask. Putting these together is honestly really fun for me. But if you're going on this trip, I am so excited for you. Have the best time. Get out there, go see all the animals. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you're at all curious about Mount Kilimanjaro, I do have videos coming. I vlogged my entire experience and I'm making a series of other videos just reviewing it, packing video, tips that I had for that experience because it's such a big one. And if you're at all curious about how I book these trips back to back, feel free to ask because going from safari to climbing mountain was definitely a crazy time. But be on the lookout for those. But yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.